Hi, it's Peter Sage, creator of The Millionaire Business School and Amazon best-selling author. And on this video, I want to ask you a question. What do you think you should spend your time doing? In other words, how do we work out how to determine where to spend our focus and our time? You know, in a world that is so busy being busy, where everything is thrown at us from every conceivable angle with every conceivable agenda, how do we filter through that and reclaim our own time on our own terms rather than be subject to everybody else's demands? Well, that's just a matter of choice. But if it is, what do we choose? Because although the average person is subject to tens of thousands of commercial messages a day that do not have your best interests at heart over and above the interests of the message in terms of sales or persuasion, when we strip all that away, what do we do with the time that we have? How much time do we have? Well, the average lifetime, if you're doing well, would give you about 4,000 weeks. 4,000 weeks, that's it. And if you're listening to this and you're already 20 years old, I've got news for you. 1,000 of those have already gone. So if we start to understand or come to terms with our own sense of mortality, without being morbid, but just being real, rather than get to 3/4 of those weeks and think, oh, hang on, what happened? You see, in our 20s, most of the time we think we're invincible. There's no end limit to the game we're playing. By the time we start crossing the birthdays that have a 0 in and begin with anything 4 or greater, we tend to start questioning a little bit more about the time that we've got left, and therefore, if we feel personally there's more days behind us than are in front, we start to say, what are we doing with the time that we got left? So it's kind of like cramming for the exam. If we know we've got 8 weeks to prepare for an exam, what do? Normally, what everybody else does. We start preparing for it after 7.5 weeks and start cramming in. That's where cramming comes from. But if we're talking about life, that's a very different game to taking an exam. So what should we do and where should we play our focus? Well, I'm not here to make those suggestions or give you those answers. I have no right to do that. But I will sort of suggest a few things that will allow you to make hopefully a better decision or validate the decision that you've currently made as right. So here's the starting point. Whatever you are spending time on, the question to ask ultimately is, are you enjoying it? Are you passionate about it? Because if you're not, then what's the point? Unless, like in entrepreneurship, for example, you're willing to do some of the things that you're not particularly wanting to do for the rest of your life, but doing it in a short while so you can spend the rest of your life doing what you want to do. That's one aspect to it. But even under those circumstances, I would encourage you to, even if you're going to be working hard on a business to give you freedom further down the line, choose something to work on now that you enjoy, that you're passionate about. Otherwise, what's the point? But when it comes to where we spend our time in other areas of our life, what should we do? Well, I want to introduce you to what I call foundational concepts. For me, a foundational concept is something that governs the ability to do everything else at a better level. And there's certain areas of our life where I'm going to suggest you look at certain foundational concepts to see if they resonate for you, because again, in a multimedia, ever push notification world, it's very easy to be distracted along things or along the lines of things that just don't serve our own interests or light us up in a way that they can. So if we take the subject of business, for example, let's look, there's many different things we could spend our time on in business, certainly in terms of going out and getting good at the game of business. We can learn marketing, we can learn sales, we can learn executive management, we can learn a whole host of different business skills. But the number one skill that I would focus my time on first as a foundational skill with business is time management. And the reason I suggest that is because without time management, or without getting good at time management, you don't have time to focus on all of the other things or apply the other things that you're learning. So time management for business is what I call it. It's a foundation, it's a parent skill, because everything else can be applied or implemented better as a result of better time management. And again, time management is a myth. You can't manage time. That's like King Canute trying to manage the waves. All you can do is manage yourself in relation to the time that we've all been given equally. So, trying to wrestle with time itself is a tunnel with no cheese. But if you get good at managing yourself in relation to time, everything can unfold at a different level. So it's about asking more quality questions. If you take, for example, lifestyle, what would be the foundational focus for lifestyle? And for me personally, I would say that it would be health and vitality. See, I know a lot of people that can have all the champagne in the world. You can fly first class, on your own Gulfstream. But if you haven't got the health and vitality to be able to enjoy it, what's the point? And many of those people would give up a significant part of their fortune to try to be able to get back a sense of health and vitality. So health and vitality is a focal point that is a foundational aspect of lifestyle. If you want more information on health and vitality, one of my Straight Talk number 11 is a 2-hour talk that I give just on health, to simplify a lot of the complexity around the minefield of the subjects. One of my passions, along with business entrepreneurship, understanding human behavior and quantum physics. They're my passions that I want to spend my time studying and focusing. If we look at personal skills, one of the foundational areas of focus in my experience for personal skills or personal development or self-improvement or informal education, if you want to call it that, one of the areas of focus that I would encourage people to look at would be speed reading. You see, we're faced with so much of an overwhelm of information that most people have no clue how to get through that, or it just stacks up in an inbox or a recommendation or reading list that never gets lower than it gets higher. So learning how to speed read is a foundational skill that can have a knock-on effect to make everything else easier or even unnecessary. Now, when I talk about speed reading, the reason I suggest that is because majority of people in life through the formal educational process are taught to read very dysfunctionally. They're taught to read in a very inefficient and ineffective way. And the reason is most of us have been taught to read with our ears, not our eyes. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're reading something, even if it's the comments on this YouTube video, or the description or something on the web or in a magazine, what generally is going on is that the eyes will spot the words on the page, the brain will recognize a pattern of the contrasting colors, let's say black on white. It'll then signify an articulate sound called a word or a phrase or a sentence that we then listen to make sense of. Now, all of that is very disjointed. It's a very inefficient way. It's like, typical cars run at 20 to 30% efficiency on internal combustion. Very inefficient. The way we read is at least or lower than that level of efficiency. So speed reading teaches us not to sub-vocalize, because if we want to read fast and we're reading with our ears, we can only read as fast as we can talk. Makes sense. And for most people, even people talking as fast as me, that's only round about 250 words a minute maximum. But you don't need to look at your hand to say the word hand to know it's a hand. Yet the brain recognizes that and shortcuts it because we've not been trained to say hand when we look at a hand as we do words. So, learning to speed read could literally transform you, and learning to do it properly will re-engage or certainly enhance comprehension and retention as well. Learning to read a book so you can get all of the brain involved, all of your senses, emotions in there, makes the book come alive like a movie, and you can get through information very quickly at that point by reading with the eyes, not the ears. If you doubt that, I could show you or flash you a picture on screen for a second, and you could probably talk about it for 2 minutes, because the brain can take in that much information visually very, very fast and make sense of it. So, I would say that would be a foundational area of focus. If we go on to personal relationships, an area that many people struggle with, again, because of lack of authentic or credible understanding as to how to learn or master this thing called relationships that most of us sort of stumble into and then spend a lot of the time blaming the other partner for why the relationship is not moving down a certain path. And if I was to suggest a foundational focus for a relationship, it would be to master your ability to listen and understand, especially us men. Us men are trained by nature to fix problems. We're goal seeking, problem solving. It's how we validate our masculinity. So, you know, our wife, girlfriend, spouse, partner comes home and starts sharing their problems, which is how women communicate to each other. And we see, oh, opportunity to fix. Stop. Now, that's what we do, but there's no understanding there. So, yeah, most relationship problems come from a lack of communication or understanding of what's really going on, because both partners are too entrenched in their own model of the world to appreciate that, there's two different ways, two different languages going on. So, if I was to say which area should I focus on in relationships, it's not how to please my woman. It's not how to be better in bed. It's not any of the skill sets, techniques. First and foremost, foundationally, where do I want to focus my time? Is learn how to understand and interpret and listen and communicate better with the opposite sex. From there, you can go have rock star sex. From there, you can go and really develop deep levels of intimacy and connection. But without that level of communication in place, all of that other stuff will just be distractive from some of the problems caused by an inability to communicate. So that's kind of my sum up on key areas of focus in life. Know that we've only got so many weeks as we fly around this giant fireball on a rocket, several thousand miles an hour on this game of life. I mean, you couldn't make it up. But what do we do with the time? What do we do with the gift that we got? We don't want to get to the end and start regretting what could have happened. Don't let your dreams die inside of you by wasting it on trivial stuff. Ask yourself the quality question. What's the one thing that I could focus on that would make more of a difference in this area of my life than anything else? The one thing that could make everything else easier or even unnecessary, that would allow me to progress further, rather than get distracted by all the other fluff. And if we start asking quality questions at that level and start really taking out foundational skills, concepts, or levels of self-improvement to focus to bring more of us to the table, rather than get distracted, then we'll live a much better quality of life, and having known with certainty that the time that we did have was well spent. Hey, Peter Sage here. I'm back just to say I hope you enjoyed what you saw on that video, and remember that knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. So it's about applying what you learn, not just being passively entertained by what you learn. If you like more of what I do, please subscribe to my channel so I can share more of my wisdom and insights with you to make a difference. Please also go to my website at petersage.com. I have a ton of free content for a lot of people there to add more value, and I hope to see you on another video soon.